If you only watched YouTube, you'd think Star Citizen was the most broken mess of a project, one that even the people who claim to love seem to hate with a burning passion. Outside of a handful of positive creators, the algorithm rewards negativity, feeding the outrage cycle. That isn't unique to Star Citizen, it's how humans are wired. Even Battlefield 6, which I saw getting wall-to-wall praise during the beta, has already built up a small but loud hater base that YouTube is happy to amplify. Outrage content performs because people are drawn to drama and disappointment. But let's be fair, Star Citizen has served up plenty of both. In a 24/7 news cycle where you're only as good as your latest release, skepticism is natural. Patch 4.2.1 looked like it could finally deliver. It had all the ingredients for epic gameplay, rewards that pulled players in, a PvE-focused loop that appealed to the more laid-back backers, and a whole month to give even time-crunch players a real shot at completing it. For a game constantly dragged as Combat Citizen, it looked like the perfect setup. And then, it all fell apart. What should have been a great event with massive turnout became a frustrating mess as freight elevator bugs brought everything down. For a lot of players, that stumble reinforced the long-running narrative that the game is broken and unplayable. But if we're going to be a topical, what have you done for me lately kind of community, then it's only fair to also look at what's happened since. Post 4.3, the balance has shifted again, but this time toward playability. In this video, I'm going to break down Star Citizen's progress in 2025. We'll cover the triumphs, the missteps, and why I believe this is finally becoming a real game. Like most things in life, there's more to the story than meets the eye. Let me cook on this, watch until the end, and I'll give you the full picture. I'll also point you to some of my other videos where I dig deeper into certain topics, in case you want to explore further. If you're new here, I'm Captain Katarn. I cover Star Citizen with a focus on the systems, challenges, and progress shaping the game. I'm not afraid to take on divisive topics, but I don't do outrage bait. That kind of content might get clicks, but it isn't honest, and it isn't me. If you're looking for grounded, thoughtful takes on Star Citizen, hit subscribe and join the Captain's crew. You'll fit right in. I've been backing the game since 2016, and for years I treated Star Citizen as a game you log into a few times a year, check the updates or the lack of them depending on your view, and then move on to something else for months. That was my routine up until 4.0. I'd drift in and out, checking progress while life went on, letting the game cook in the background. 4.0 was the patch that finally made Star Citizen feel different. For years we were locked inside Stanton. Sure, it was polished in places, but it was still just one system. The moons and the scaled-down planets were huge, but even with all that space, the walls closed in fast. Then Pyro arrived. For the first time, we could leave Stanton behind and see what it felt like to exist in a larger universe. Jumping through that gate is still one of the most impressive experiences in the game. You spool up your drive, push into the wormhole, and the whole mood shifts. Stanton is structured and safe, while Pyro is raw, dangerous, and unregulated. That contrast gives the game a sense of scale and identity it had never had before. But Pyro didn't arrive in a vacuum. Bringing two systems online forced CIG to deliver on something people had been waiting on for years. Server meshing. This was the holy grail. The thing critics swore would never work. For the longest time, it felt like a fantasy. Always just out of reach. And then with 4.0, it quietly slid into place. Ships crossed from Stanton to Pyro without crashing the servers, and it worked. That might sound small, but in the context of Star Citizen's history, it was massive, and in terms of the games industry, that tech is transformational. What's funny is how quickly the miraculous becomes ordinary. The internet, smartphones, GPS, and all the other breakthroughs once felt revolutionary, and now we don't even think about them. Server meshing in Star Citizen has followed that same path. It used to be the impossible hurdle, the feature people mocked as vaporware, and today it's so seamless, most players barely notice it. That's the ultimate compliment. You don't think about the tech anymore because it does what it's supposed to do. It just works. And the game is better for it. For me, this was when Star Citizen finally broke out of that cycle of being something I'd check in on a couple times a year and then walk away from. Instead of waiting for it to get good, I realized it was already starting to deliver. Pyro and server meshing proved the impossible was possible, and that shift directly led to me making Star Citizen content as my main focus. I'm passionate about it now. And it no longer feels like the impossible dream only the most die-hard backers could hold on to after years of delays. 2025 gave us something Star Citizen hadn't had before, a rhythm. Nearly monthly patches landed with new gameplay loops that actually worked, and for the first time, players didn't just log in to test patch notes and vanish, they stayed and played. I mentioned this in my Squadron 42 development history video. Unleashing most of the studio into the persistent universe after being tied up with Squadron 42 for over 6 years changed everything. The release cadence improved, and the polish on those updates showed. But the content itself wasn't always universally loved, because both of the first major drops leaned hard into PvP. A line in mine looked like a cooperative PvE mission on the surface. The premise was pretty cool. You'd line up satellite dishes on the ground, then take to space to power the site and fire up the giant mining laser. All the while other players could swoop in to steal the reward or lock down the site so you couldn't even approach. That design turned the event into an ambush magnet. For PvP groups, it was a goldmine, and they thrived. It proved that CIG could design complex, multi-stage activities, but at the expense of solo players and the PvE crowd. That same tension carried over into Stormbreaker. On paper, the setup was incredible with hazardous facilities, dynamic weather, and waves of enemies, but the real danger was other players. Entire groups camped the sites, wiping anyone who tried to play it straight. From a design standpoint, it was a milestone. Layered objectives, hostile environments, and organic PvP all woven together. But it also reignited the same debate we've seen 100 times. I managed to complete it on the PTU during off hours, and it impressed the hell out of me. It's fair to say Alpha 4.2.1 was the lowest point of 2025. The Resource Drive event launched with everything it needed to succeed. A PvE-focused loop, strong rewards to bring players in, and a full month to let everyone participate. On paper, it looked like a slam dunk. In practice, freight elevator bugs and broken mission flow turned it into a frustrating mess. Players who showed up excited for a rare large-scale cooperative event ended up stuck, unable to retrieve or offload their cargo and couldn't complete objectives. As I said in this video, and I still believe now, that this was an intentional stress test. CIG later apologized on Inside Star Citizen, insisting it wasn't a stress test, but that was PR damage control. I don't blame them for falling on the sword rather than reigniting community outrage. The truth is, everything we do in this game generates data, and the Resource Drive provided critical data for fixing systems that future gameplay will rely on. So far, that's paying off. Patch 4.3 continued the event, and the freight elevators have been flawless for me ever since. Fingers crossed it stays that way. The other flashpoint of the year wasn't about bugs, it was about money. The release of flight blades, stat-boosting components sold for cash before being available in-game, lit the pay-to-win debate on fire. On their own, the blades were fine, and CIG promised they'd eventually be purchasable with credits. But for a vocal part of the community, this was a red flag, the idea that real money could temporarily buy a competitive edge. The backlash was loud and lasted for weeks. Even though the blades themselves weren't game-breaking, the controversy gave critics ammo and forced the community to question where the monetization line would be drawn. I covered that in my video Is Star Citizen Pay to Win, where I broke down what winning even means in a game like this. Beyond those headline controversies, 2025 still had the usual problems. Desync continued to frustrate pilots and ground pounders alike. AI behavior swung between extremes, sometimes putting up a solid fight in the ASD facilities, swarming players and rarely missing shots, other times standing idle in elevators. And while overall stability was improving, missing mission markers and server crashes always feel like they surface at the worst possible moments. These low points matter because they keep expectations grounded. The Resource Drive showed how fast goodwill can collapse when a patch misfires, and the Flight Blades debate proved that monetization decisions carry just as much weight as gameplay design. Star Citizen made big strides this year, but the setbacks were reminders that the project still has plenty of pitfalls to navigate. 4.21 left a sour taste, but 4.3 hit the reset button. What made this patch stand out was the combination of smoother stability and strong new content landing at the same time. That's the formula Star Citizen has struggled to get right for years, and in 4.3 it finally clicked. The new Onyx facilities were the highlight. Dark, multi-layered, and filled with traps and hostile AI, they were the first true dungeon-style missions in the game. For players who wanted PvE without being farmed by PvP orgs, this was the answer. Sure, you might find a worthless loser camping a corner by himself for hours trying to ruin your night, but CIG did everything short of instancing to make that a rare occurrence. Plus, if you win the fight, that really twists the knife, doesn't it? Keep your guard up in there and check your doors and corners, kid. That's where they get you. You could bring a group, run the wings, and come away with loot and stories to tell. I broke this down in detail in my Onyx Facilities video, so check that one out if you want the full tour. Onyx Facilities already feel complete, and we're getting even more expansion on them in 4.3.1. But all the content in the world doesn't matter if the game doesn't run, and that's where 4.3 surprised people most. The bugs that crippled the resource drive, like the freight elevators being unusable and missing missions, are finally under control. I noticed it on stream. We could set out to play for hours and actually finish the plan we made at the start of the night. I had some crashes that were fixed by switching to the Vulkan client. Missions fired properly, ships behaved usually, and the frame rate held steady. For a game that has carried the unplayable alpha label for so long, that change was huge. The community noticed it too. Posts on Reddit and Spectrum shifted from frustration to cautious optimism. People started calling it the most stable patch in years. And that's why 4.3 matters. It proved that CIG can stumble hard one patch, then deliver a release that restores confidence. The mix of playable content and stable systems in 4.3 was proof that Star Citizen can bounce back fast and deliver the kind of experience players have been waiting for. And if you're living by the "what have you done for me lately" mindset, well, 4.3 gave us plenty of reasons to feel good. The biggest shift with 4.3 is that for the first time, the whole package finally feels like a real game. You can log in, pick a role, and play an entire night without constantly apologizing for alpha problems. That combination of stability and variety is what pushes Star Citizen across the line from tech demo into something truly playable. When someone says it isn't a game yet, I think they are being intentionally obtuse about what's actually playable or are axe grinding. Think about what it offers now that no other title can match. Player-owned capital ships with functioning hangars mean you're running a mobile base. You're docking smaller ships inside while pulling off multi-crew gameplay at a scale that looks and feels straight out of a sci-fi movie. If you've seen my Idris review, you know exactly how much potential that level of scale has when it actually works. Then there's salvage gameplay, one of several non-combat activities in game. Ships like the Vulture and Reclaimer let you strip wrecks for profit, and suddenly every battlefield becomes an opportunity instead of just floating debris. That ties directly into mining, which has only gotten deeper over time. Balancing power, scanning asteroids, extracting rare ore. Whether you're group mining in a mole or solo in a prospector, both loops are rewarding in their own right. Seeing salvage and mining side by side shows how the industrial side of Star Citizen is finally starting to form a backbone. Cargo hauling pulls it all together. Cargo is physical now. Stolen if you slip up, destroyed if you make a mistake. Sure, it's not without its problems, and I've detailed that in other videos, but it's more of the non-combat gameplay the verse needs. That makes logistics a full career path, but also fuels piracy and PvP. I've already dug into the lack of piracy consequences in another video, and those issues are still there. But love it or hate it, the fact that piracy exists as an emergent loop is what gives the universe danger and unpredictability. And when those consequences do arrive, that's when pirates will finally earn my respect as one of the hardest professions in the game. There's even more content like PvP and PvE space and ground bounties, mercenary missions infiltrating asteroids and NPC bases, and those new ASD investigation missions. Taken together, all these features add up to a game that's outright playable and compelling. 4.3's stability keeps it from falling apart, and the variety of roles gives players reasons to come back. That's why I believe 2025 is the year you can finally call Star Citizen not only a game, but a playable universe that's only going to grow from here. I covered some of the behind-the-scenes changes at CIG that led us here in my video about the shift in open development, so if you're curious about what changed under the hood, that's a good place to start. Big systems like engineering, repair, and medical are still cooking, but that doesn't mean there isn't already a mountain of gameplay here. The extended development has given us a long enough runway that longtime backers don't even see the magic of the game anymore. I'm guilty of that too. For the longest time, the only thing I'd do when I logged in was ground-pounding bunker missions out of habit, not really understanding the depth of content available to me. That's why I made a video walking through everything you can do right now and what's coming next. I built it for new players, but if you're a returning backer who's been out of the loop for years, that's a perfect refresher. And look, I get it. There's always going to be people jaded about the game's development, frustrated by one bug that drives them crazy, or salty about the amount of money CIG has raised. I feel you. But I also believe we're at the point where we can move past that. I see people in the comments trying to convince me I'm not really having fun playing with my friends on the live streams, or that we shouldn't support the game because of something they're personally upset about. Some are legit and passionate, others are just trolling. But as I learned from Starship Troopers, figuring things out for yourself is the only real freedom a person has. I encourage you to use that freedom. Don't let YouTubers tell you the sky is falling, or trolls convince you to stay away from Star Citizen because they're obsessed with hating it. And don't just take my word that it's fun now. There's a free fly from August 26th to September 2nd. If you're curious, jump in. Use my referral link if you want some extras and see for yourself. If it's not for you yet, no worries. You'll know firsthand. But what do you think? Are you able to objectively look through the noise and see the progress? Or do you think that a lot of the community goodwill was gobbled up in the freight elevators alongside your cargo? I read all the comments and try to respond, so your voice matters here. If you made it this far, you're already part of the crew, and who knows, maybe we'll cross paths in game. So let's make it official. Subscribe and join the captain's crew. If you want to go further, check out my Patreon, use the join button on the channel, or even grab something through the Impound with my referral. That support is what lets me keep flying. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.